We are now live. Welcome to the Bible Hangout. Those of you on YouTube, you missed all that opening part. All right, great. So let's start with the presentations. So where we were last week, we talked about the healing formula that was identified, and what that was influenced by was from the reading in the Anchor Bible edition of Acts of the Apostle. And the healing formula was a 5-part formula that they laid out in the Anchor Bible series. And hold on, I want to give that to you. And so it was to practice the miracle formula, which is to identify the situation that needs resolution, speak the word of command, fulfill any restorative action, allow the cure to be effected, and then observe the reaction of the bystanders being the people, your other thoughts, the rest of your being. And so first I want to open, before I share my experience, to see if there was anyone who had a chance to work with this material and what you drew from it.
Reverend Sherri?
Yes.
Yeah, I spent a bit of time with it, but I worked on the question about how do you get into the elevated state of consciousness.
Okay, that's perfect.
That was the one that I worked on.
Okay. And is Gloria speaking, or who's it speaking?
Clarice.
Oh, Clarice, my apologies. Okay, go ahead, Clarice.
And so anyway, I wrote a couple paragraphs. I sent it to you. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it or not.
You know what? Okay, I'm sorry. I saw GC and my mind just said Gloria. So, okay. Yes, may I share it, or is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So in Acts 3:1-10, an ordinary event, that of an encounter with a beggar, takes on extraordinary layers of meaning. When we define ourselves as infirm, like the lame man laying at the gate of the temple, our error thoughts are in control, and we too lay inactive, ceding our choices to whatever our circumstances may be. We do not know the lame man's name, nor do we know why he has settled for whatever crumbs are thrown his way, but we do know that he has been hurting and broken and holding court at the gate for a very long time. Day after day, the lame man seeks alms at the entrance to the temple. It is the same type of temporary external fix we all seek. It doesn't require us to venture outside our comfort zone. It's quick, it's easy, and it stops the pain today. When Peter and John arrive, faith and love work together, and they open a door for the lame man, a door to a place that is beyond his expectations. It is a place where triumphs want. Our original question was, how do you get into an elevated state of consciousness? Like the lame man, we must be open and receptive to transformation. If we fix our attention on truth instead of conditions, the redemptive work that leads to true freedom can begin. First, we recognize, then we identify with, and in the presence of God, a world of possibilities will open before us. And as Maya Angelou said, when we know better, we do better. Yes. I agree. Thank you for that. That was powerful. Anybody else? Anyone else? I will share from my own experience that, I shared last week that I deal with headaches, and I feel like it was either Friday or Saturday. I felt a headache coming on, and I immediately had a conversation with myself. No. This is not your birthright. Stop it right now. And really just to ask myself, what is it that you need? Do you need to lay down? Do you need to rest? Like tell me what it is that you need, because we're not going to go here with a headache. Like, you can just let that go. And mind you, that tends to be the conversation that I'm having with myself. It is very much like, no. This is not okay. But anybody else? Anybody else?
To be the.
Go ahead. Did I cut somebody off? Oh, I thought I cut somebody off. Okay, I see. I gotta. All right. So today we're going to conclude this 3-part series. I'm going to talk through just my notes, and then we're going to, please just what would probably help the conversation is if we could think of this in light of everything that happened with George Floyd, and think about healing from the perspective of what is mine to do. And that's been the question that I've been asking myself just, since all of this came to light, is what is mine to do? I feel like that we are in the New Thought community being called out of our hiding places and being called to speak up, to speak out, and to do something. Now, what that something is, I don't know what that answer is. I'm not, again, I'm sitting in a space of openness and in a space of willingness. And I had a conversation with my mentor, Dr. Will Coleman, before this class today. And he said to me, this is what he said. He said, hold on, I want to give you his words, because he said it only the way that Dr. Coleman could say, which is that we must cultivate metaphysical backbones on this: peace with justice. And I think he's feeling, and I'm feeling, and I know some of my other colleagues are feeling like, okay, enough already with allowing the inmates to run the asylum, that it is time to be involved and be involved in a way that's meaningful and that makes a difference for people. And it's one thing to affect your personal economy and your personal consciousness and the things that impact you, but it is an entirely other thing to get out there, get involved, and to stand in the gap for other people who may not have a voice for themselves. And I think we see that kind of work with a King or a Gandhi or Mother Teresa, all three of whom were not a part of the class of people that they advocated for. They all came from families of means and aligned themselves very definitely with people who needed change, and they weren't willing to simply look the other way. So if we could consider the story in that light, and let's just see what the Spirit gives us. May not get anything more than what we have right now, or who knows, maybe some solution may come. But if we begin to ask the question, there's no such thing as knocking without there being an answer. 29 Odette says, yes, the same thing has been in my consciousness as well. I feel frustrated by my own silence. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been historically a part of our movement to very much, is work on yourself. And I think there's a place for that, to work on yourself. But there's a larger need now that we have something powerful to contribute, and it's time that we do. All right, so let us get into the lesson. All right. So I'm just going to do a quick recap and share this. Okay. So there are 4 steps to the metaphysical Bible interpretation process. And these steps are, you can find outlined pretty clearly in a book by Alden Studebaker. And he has a new edition of the book coming. It's a really good book, and I strongly recommend it. And your first step is to select and study and read the text. And we chose Acts chapter 3, verses 1 through 10. And in studying it, that means a couple of things. So we picked the translation that we're starting with. I started with the New Revised Standard Version, read through the story, then I went to the NIV, then I went to the New International Version, the NKJV, the New King James Version, the ASV, which is the American Standard Version, and the New Living Translation. And again, what we said is that what we're trying to get is a perspective, that when we come to the text, we're generally coming to the text with our own prejudices, with our own biases, and we have to be able to be able to see and perceive beyond our internal biases. And so all of this study is to try to get beyond what it is that we believe. And I will say this, because I think this is really important, is that you come to the text to be transformed. If you go to the Bible to simply confirm what you believe, then you have not been changed by the text. The purpose of any Bible study, including what we're doing right now, is for the purpose of changing you. And so you read widely and deeply for the purpose of being changed. And yes, you can receive inspiration just by reading one translation, but I'm saying don't stop with inspiration, go for transformation. Because what you want is the fruit that is hidden on the inside of you. You want the fruit that sustains. For example, one of the things that I'm deeply clear about is that there are no problems that appear without their corresponding solution. This universe is faithful in its opposites, meaning that up has down, in has out, left has right, life has death. Like there are no opposites, there is no one, there are always two, meaning this yin and this yang. So for this problem of police brutality to appear, it means that the corresponding solution is also present. But what happens is that you have to have the eyes to perceive what is already present. And the consciousness that created the problem will not be the consciousness that solves the problem. So the transformation is for the purpose of being cracked wide open so that the best of you may come out into expression. So we read widely and we read deeply because we want to be transformed. We do not want to stay the same. I do not go to the Bible to simply soothe myself, although you can be soothed by what you read in the Bible. I go to the Bible because I want to be changed at the core of my being. I don't want to be left in my comfort zone. I want to be kicked out of the nest. So that's the reason that we read widely and that we read deeply. And then you turn to your non-metaphysical sources, and I've shared with you some of the ones that I use, like the Anchor Bible Commentary, which mine came in on last week. I also looked at Bart Ehrman's The New Testament, which is not really a commentary, but it's a scholarly work that talks about how the early Christian community formed and looking at it through the lens of the text. I also looked at the Oxford Annotated Bible. And again, I'm just trying to get beyond my bias. I've read this story from Acts chapter 3, verses 1 through 10 a few times before this setting, but I don't want to come to it and get from the text what I already got. I'm trying to come and find something new. And so I'm reading across sources in order to stretch beyond that. In doing that, one of the things that came up, I hadn't even gotten to the metaphysical Bible interpretation yet. One of the things that came up was that I got from the Oxford Annotated at that point was that this was Peter's first healing. And that stood out to me because his first healing after receiving the Holy Spirit at Pentecost. And so that drove me to say, well, wait a minute, what the heck happened at leading up to Pentecost? Like what, like not just Pentecost, like what were those specific steps? And from that, I was able to see that there were some specific things that Peter did to put himself into an elevated state of mind so that he might be available to do the healing work. And then I just kind of notated my conclusions. Step 2 is to identify keywords and phrases. And I realized after last week that I actually kind of did step 2 and step 3, because step 2 is simply to get clear on what are the words and phrases that I need to research. What are the words and phrases that I need to look up? One of the hacks that I gave you for metaphysical Bible interpretation is to go to Truth Unity. TruthUnity.net is a site that was put together by my friend Mark Hicks. And on this site, what he has done is hyperlink every word in scripture that appears in either the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary or in the Revealing Words. So he gives you kind of like a little cheat sheet that you can know. You don't have to guess it like what word to look up because it's already in the scripture. So those are the yellow highlights. The green highlights come out of the reading. The yellow highlights are what's on Truth Unity. The green highlights are what came up when I was doing the reading all the different translations and looking at the Anchor Bible commentary and the notes in the Oxford Annotated Bible and other non-metaphysical sources. And so I found maybe 5 or 6 things. The 3 o'clock in the afternoon was important. The idea that this man had been lame from birth and what that meant. It was something from the Anchor Bible commentary that talked about him asking them for alms, that he looked intently at them and he fixed his attention. He was expecting to receive something. He went into the temple with them after the healing, and that he was leaping and praising. And so I looked up those things. So the third step in the Metaphysical Bible process, if you will, is once you've identified the key words and phrases, it is to develop the definitions. So what you want to do is you want to go to the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary or the Revealing Word, and the difference being that the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary is a dictionary of of proper names and nouns. So people and places. So you'd find words like Jesus or Joseph or Mary, or you'd find places like Babylon or Nazareth or Jerusalem. Common words, meaning that it is not the name of a person or not the name of a place. Words like prayer and temple and man. Those are the kinds of words that you will find in the Revealing Word. Just want to check to see if there are anybody in the waiting room. And for the most part, you can kind of pick up the definition, like the first phrase or so, and insert it into the paragraph, into the word. So for example, Peter symbolizes faith. It is the ability to discern truth. John symbolizes love. Now, there's a definition of love in the Revealing Word that I remember from years ago, and it has always stayed with me. And I usually like to use it as much as possible because it resonated with me so deeply. And what it says is that love love looks at all things and sees good. And love insists that all is good. And it is the insistence from love that all is good that causes that good to appear uppermost in whatever that love is projected upon. And so if you have ever seen a mother love a child and love a child into their highest self, if you have seen relationships, I remember, I don't think they watch the Bible Hangout. I'm not going to name names, but I had a friend who I remember when she started dating this guy, and he was living in Chicago and they relocated back to Los Angeles. And we all knew her because she lives in Los Angeles with us. And, he was okay. He was okay. Not a bad guy or anything like that. A little bit on the ego side. And when I tell you, this woman loved this man up and talked about him like he was the king of the world. And come to find out a few years later, this guy who really didn't know a whole lot, like she was the heavy in the relationship, as far as like, let's say intellect and all of that. And but all of that good loving, he ends up being president of Tyler Perry Studios. And I said, boy, that's some good, like love sees good in all things. And love will love you out of a hole and into the president's office. And so I always remember that about love, because you can love a circumstance. Now, it's easy to love what is easy to love, but love works no matter what you put it on. And this is why Martin Luther King talked about love being the greatest weapon, because love is a transformational agent. Love has nothing to do with like. It has, I can love you and not like you. But if I love you, I insist that what is good in you must appear uppermost in your consciousness, and I will hold your feet to the fire. And holding your feet to the fire may mean taking you to court. Holding your feet to the fire may mean, it may not look like love to you when it's happening, but it will absolutely transform you. And so I always remember that when I think about love, and I think about John encountering this beggar and turning that love on this beggar. That love looks at what is and sees beyond what is into what can be. So just wanted to share that. That always stays with me, because I'm telling you, if y'all knew this guy, y'all be like, boy, she worked a miracle, and she did. And that's, taking nothing away from him, but I'm just acknowledging what I saw. Okay. The word temple symbolizes the regenerated body of man. But as I, started working with this, I discern from spirit that it's this consciousness of wholeness. Prayer represents communion between man. And all I'm doing is I'm picking up the part of the definition that seems to fit. And I am taking it and putting it into, back into the sentence. And so in a normal setting, I would actually line through, Peter and things like that. I would not, I would not have that there. So my sentence would then read, one day, faith, or the ability to discern truth and the ability to see good in all things, or going into the consciousness of oneness. So I'm replacing these words. I left them here for this exercise, but if I were doing this and it were just me and I weren't trying to explain it to you, I would actually get rid of the words that I looked up, because I'm rewriting the sentence with the definitions. So let me stop right here. Is that making sense? Are there any questions on what is happening? Yes, no, maybe so.
No, so far so good.
So far so good. Okay, great. All right. So this is again, I'm if I were doing this by myself, I would basically be getting rid of the words that I looked up, because I would be rewriting the material without these words in it, and I would be looking at it with just the definitions in the sentence. So one day, the ability to discern truth, and love is the ability to see good in all things. We're going up into, and we said the consciousness of wholeness, right? The regenerated body of man. It's a consciousness of wholeness. At the hour of communion between man and God. So that there is this activity that's happening where my ability to look beyond appearances and my ability to see good no matter what are going into a consciousness of wholeness. They're coming in together, right? That's what the going to the temple is. At the hour of communion between man and God. That tells me there is a definite time when this coming together happens. And the idea in divine mind, or the consciousness, and it says the lame man. So lame would be replaced with, and a consciousness that didn't understand its spiritual strength, that had not affirmed its spiritual strength through the living Christ, that seemed hopeless, was being carried in. People would lay him at the doorway to spiritual illumination of that consciousness of wholeness, called the beautiful gate, so that he could ask for alms from those entering the temple. When the ability to discern truth and the ability to see good in all things was about to go into the consciousness of oneness, this consciousness that had not affirmed its strength through the living Christ asked for substance. Are you following what I'm doing?
Yeah, Rev. Sherri,
Yes, go ahead.
can you go back to the whiteboard so we can see that again?
Yes. Am I not on that?
So we can see the lines that you're talking about.
Okay, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. So what I'm doing, so what happens in step 3 is that you're developing the definitions, right? But I probably should have done this in step 4. So step 3 is where you're developing the definitions, right? You're putting in, you're going to the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, you're going to the Revealing Word and your other sources, and you're adding back, or substituting is really the word I should use. You're substituting the definitions in place of the word that you looked up. And so I explained that the yellow highlights symbolize are the words from Truth Unity, but the green highlights are what came out of the study that I did in step 1. So my study in step 1 gives me the additional things that I need to look up. Sometimes there may be additional things to look up. Sometimes there may not be additional things to look up. And for the most part, I'm picking up definitions almost verbatim from the Revealing Word or from the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, phrases, and I'm entering them as the substitutions. Does that
Reverend
make sense?
Sherri?
Yes.
Okay, I ran into a problem with temple.
Okay.
I couldn't get beyond the symbol of generated body of man.
Mm-hmm.
Where I looked throughout unity.net. You used a different term about consciousness. Where else could I have looked?
Right. Now tell me, let me make sure I got clear.
I got stuck on that.
Absolutely.
Just didn't know where.
No. I get exactly what you're saying. But you did find the regenerated body of man.
Yes.
Okay. So some of this is just coming from just the years of work that I've done that helped me make that leap to the consciousness of wholeness.
Okay.
That's part of it. But the regenerated body of man. So it's not, Fillmore says it this way, but it's a thought that's been traveling through time. So what he says is that the Bible is the story of humankind. It is about the generation, the degeneration, and the regeneration of humankind. The generation happening in Genesis. And then we have what has been termed as the fall of man. So it's the degeneration. Man is descending in consciousness. They start at this consciousness of oneness in the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the tree of duality. And so I no longer am sitting in the consciousness of oneness. I have the consciousness of opposites, right? The awareness of the awareness of good and bad, or good and evil, right? So that's the degeneration. And so what we are seeing in the Bible is this degeneration of man and consciousness until we get to the figure of Jesus the Christ, and we see the regenerated man emerging.
Okay.
And so the temple it symbolizes the regenerated body of man. It is man back and humankind. You know, the terms they use were masculine. It's humankind back in its right mind. Humankind aware of its spiritual origin, in compliance with its spiritual nature, and in accord with its spiritual power.
Okay, got it.
So as I was researching and doing this work, what Spirit gave to me was that's a consciousness of wholeness. It's a consciousness of oneness. So that's where that comes from. So it wasn't in any book. It came out of my study.
Okay, because every place I went in Unity, it just kept running me in circles.
Yes.
It wasn't making it clear.
Yes. And again, and so some of this is coming from, you know, I've been doing this for a number of years, and so some things come and I have to remember to like stop and back up and explain. So thank you for asking the question, because I bet somebody else had the same question.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm going to check over on Facebook for any comments. Uh-oh, I got a bunch of comments. No, I guess leave this page.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please, go ahead.
It sounded like you said duality is a condition of degeneration.
Yes.
And it is. Which is how I feel sometimes. Sometimes I feel like when I'm thinking in a dual state, I usually get cognitive dissonance somewhere in the process of my thoughts. I start contradicting myself and I feel like I'm going crazy. So I get into this state of oneness. But when I get into the state of oneness, I don't see any problem. Like if I get into a state of oneness, I could easily see the George thing as there's no problem with it. So how, that's my biggest issue. Like if you operate in a state of oneness, like where are the boundaries to everything, you know? And when you are operating in a in duality or in a dual state of mind, you can easily create boundaries. But then that, you know, creates the concept of good and evil, and then you don't know if the stuff is canceling each other out. You don't know which one's gonna win. I know you say the curve is curved towards justice or something like that. You would say that. So that kind of gives hope, but you know, it's really like tricky to think what's gonna win, you know, like who's right and who's wrong.
Right.
They're like canceling each other out.
So yes, and typically when we have said a state of oneness, this is my interpretation of New Thought, we have meant I'm in a state of oneness in my own mind, and you got to go on and get in your mind and get in your state of oneness. And that's one way. That's one way. I don't want to step on what our predecessors have done. And it's also true that if there were an illness in your body, you wouldn't just sit down with it. You would be researching, studying, figuring out what it is that what do you need to change your diet, like what, and praying. It would be both and. But you would be doing something every day to eliminate the conditions that made the disease feel like it was okay to be in your body. And I'm presenting that we need that approach in relation to what is happening with race and race relations. That it is a cancer, it is as bad as a cancer in a body, except that it's in the collective body. And those who know better need to be involved with helping other people do better. And we don't have the ability to police hearts, but what I can do is I can set up policies so that it makes it harder for you to act on what's in your heart. Uh-oh, hold on. I'm on the wrong page. Okay. So for step 4, and I apologize, I feel like I'm doing this a little confused, but I want to go here. So step 4 is where you allow the metaphysical meaning to emerge. And so in this step, I'm going to start to get rid of the words, right? I'm going to start to get rid of the highlighted words. And I said that this was the ability to see good in all things. I'm going to get rid of temple, but I'm going to use consciousness of wholeness. At the hour of prayer, get rid of prayer. The customary hour of prayer, okay. So let's just sit here with this one verse, because I think that this kind of helps to highlight it. So this one verse, one day, the ability to discern truth and the ability to see good in all things were going up to the consciousness of wholeness at the hour of communion between man and God, at the customary hour of afternoon communion. Again, it's what metaphysical Bible interpretation is always going to give you is a revelation of some activity that is either happening in your mind or should be happening in your mind. And so faith and love have this discipline of going into the consciousness of oneness. And it is in this consciousness that they are able to meet the lame man and do something about it. So one of the things that came, and I didn't even notice it in any of the other readings, and again, this is why coming back to the text again and again and again is important, because you're always going to find new things. You don't see everything the first time you read it. So if faith and love have a discipline of going to the temple at the customary hour, and this man is brought to the gate every day, it's not the first time that they have seen him, and it's not the first time that he has seen them. They have been passing him every day. But faith and love have now reached a tipping point, and they have the ability to respond to the lame man who has been brought to the gate every day. Are you hearing this? So I made this drawing because sometimes I like to draw things out because it helps me to see things. And so I know this ain't the best drawing, but you know, gotta do what you gotta do. And so it was just to help me to see that he's going up into the temple. It is this consciousness of wholeness, and this lame consciousness that needs help is at the gate. But the thing is that this consciousness, the faith and love, they are moving and operating with the intention of oneness, and they have the discipline of uniting with spirit at the same time each day, which is the 9th hour or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's showing up in the temple, connecting to the consciousness of oneness every day, conditions faith and love to finally reach the point where they can do something about the lame areas of the consciousness. Is this making sense? I hope this is. That it perhaps, Sherri, I'll use me, that the problem that you have been having with headaches is not for your lack of ability to heal the headache, but is what has your faith and love been doing every day? Are you in the temple every day at the appointed hour to commune with God? Sometimes we want to heal, but we don't want to develop the consciousness to do the healing. Peter didn't just come off the cuff and help this guy. There was all the stuff that happened at Pentecost. There was all the stuff that we discerned before he got to the gate. There was all of this preparatory work that had been done. And so sometimes the things that have been with us for a long time that feel hopeless, they only feel like that just because of the level of consciousness where we are. And we may not yet have the level of consciousness where we can eliminate the condition from the body. But the promise is that if you keep going with faith and love into the temple, the day will come when the beggar will ask you for substance, and you will not give him substance, but what you give him is the healing, and the consciousness will be removed. Are you hearing that?
So, Reverend Sherri.
Yes.
So you're saying that faith and love have been passing by this man. They've been doing this for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And faith and love have been building up to get to the consciousness of wholeness. And the man finally reached up and asked for something other than this plain old alms or whatever. He was now seeking the healing that was there if he had noticed it before and been ready to receive. Is that my understanding?
I'm saying both and.
Both and.
It's like when the teacher is ready, the student will, how about that? When the teacher is ready, the student will appear. And when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so that's why this moment is so powerful for us, because we understand that this is a level of consciousness that we're operating at. Who's going to volunteer to do the work to raise the consciousness? If not us, who? Because I don't want another Band-Aid. I got a 6-year-old boy who will one day be a man. So I don't want a Band-Aid.
That's right.
I don't want a Band-Aid. I want done.
And all that is coming up must be seen in order to be healed.
Exactly.
And then it's like, well, who's going to do it? And it doesn't always have to be like hands-on, but with the collective consciousness of raising up that enough is enough. And it is now time for faith and love to join together. And I'm calling on you, wisdom, and I'm calling on you, all the other disciples that are within us, those powers. Now is the appointed time.
Now is the appointed time. And so the question I've been bringing into prayer is, Spirit, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? Because I remember growing up in my household and the sense of fear that we had around my brother when he was, in that, well, this guy was 47, but in that age range where guys really, really get pulled over, and I remember the palpable fear and the feeling of, this is some bull. Who wants to live in a house of fear? I mean, but I can take myself today, this moment, I can take myself back to that place of what it felt like every time he walks out the door.
And isn't it for us to change that very vibration that I'm adding to this into the collective consciousness, that every time somebody walks out the door, that I'm adding to the fear. So now it's time for me to turn it around and say, no more. When anybody walks out, they're walking out, the Spirit of the Lord goes before you, making your way easy, joyous, successful, and free, so that I add to that, so that whoever is ready to hear or need it can tap into it. Is
Right.
that what we're being asked to do?
And so that may look like, I don't know what that may look like. Yvonne says, we don't need to have a leader in the traditional sense. Let the Spirit of the Most High lead each individual. Yes, I agree with that. And I feel like, and not that I'm not saying I feel like we need a leader, but I feel like we need public policy that is, so there are people who decide like where your tax dollars go. And if the tax dollars are being misspent or improperly allocated or allocated in a way that don't serve your highest good, there should be a say in that, because those are my dollars that are then being used to fund something that is perpetuating a state of fear. No, you can't use my dollars to hit me over the head. It's not okay. Alita says, so can I say it takes a while for things to come together, time to heal? This was 9 hours from the dawn of light. You know, Alita, I guess that's possible. I mean, the thing is that healing is as instantaneous. So when the beggar was ready, the ability to be healed was available. And when they were ready to do their healing, there was somebody there for them to support with the healing. But the time is completely a function of what is happening in your mind, not in the mind of God, because the mind of God is instantaneous. If I have the consciousness for it right now, I can have it in this moment. But do not be discouraged, because we all have the lame places in our consciousness. We all have the lame places where we all have the lame places that need some attention. Aloe says the consciousness of healing will be removed. Oh, Aloe, you got to tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that, because I don't know what that means. When you say the consciousness of healing will be removed. Yeah, give me a little bit more, because I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, and I want to make sure I respond to what you're saying. Okay, so let's move on to the second verse, and we won't get to the whole thing, but I want to give you the process. So step 1, you're reading, and you're reading as widely and deeply as you can. Step 2 is you're identifying what words and key phrases need to look up. Step 3, you're developing the definitions from your research from the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, the Revealing Words, and some non-metaphysical sources. And then step 4, you're replacing the words with the definitions. I want to put Consciousness of Wholeness. Okay. Not quite. Let me put a insert page break. Okay, so if we're looking at verse 2, verse 2 says, and an idea in divine mind, or a consciousness that had not affirmed its spiritual strength through the living Christ, that seemed hopeless. I'm paraphrasing here, because again, that's what you're doing. You're trying to form, you're using the definitions, trying to form reasonably coherent sentences. Okay. Is there a question?
No, that just helped clear it up. No, that cleared it up. So I'm like, are we trying to get it coherent so it makes sense? Okay.
You're trying to get a coherent sentence. Yeah. You're trying to manipulate it as little as possible, but it needs to be coherent.
Okay.
And an idea in divine mind, and a consciousness that had not affirmed its spiritual strength of the living Christ, that seemed hopeless, was being carried in. People would lay him, and again, I'm underlining this, lay him daily at the way that opens to spiritual illumination, into the consciousness of wholeness. So he's being brought right to the place where wholeness can be had. So there's on some level, there's some type of preparation that had been had, and he had been coming to this place so that he could ask for alms from those entering the temple. So this is that what this is showing us is to bring those lame places to the gate, like, you know, bring them into prayer, basically, because it's the place where prayer happens. So it's to bring them in. Now, you don't want to pray the problem, but you want to bring them in to say, Spirit, this is what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with this debt, and he came daily. You know, a lot of times. Oh, I think I got a comment. A lot of times, we will feel, I don't know if the word is ashamed, but like we can't pray consistently or continually. And the thing is that you pray until you get a result. What Jesus spoke about when he talked about the repetition, it was vain repetitions, but there is even a place in Matthew, and I think in a couple of the Gospels, where Jesus prays the same prayer 3 times. So it's not the repetition, it's the repetition where we think that where we're trying to impress God. It's like, you don't need to impress God, go ask for what you need. And so it's going to God and saying, Father, there's Mother God, whatever you refer to God, or universe or spirit, whatever your name is for God. I don't want to get hung up on names for God, because it needs to be personal between you and God. It's just to say, look, this is we need an end to this. This is not okay. I've got a young Black man that's growing up in my household. This is not okay. Tell me what to do. Is there something for me to do? Because I'm willing to go. I'm willing to be on the front lines, or whatever that looks like, because he needs a safe home. He needs to feel safe in his life. He's 6.5, and as Dr. Will Coleman said tonight when I talked to him before this class, and he needs another 95.5 of those years. Like, he deserves a full life, as do all people. So tell me, Spirit, you know, I have felt for some time that, you know, those who believe in the divine nature of all people need to be involved in public policy. You know, we need to be in this conversation, because this is not work. What we have right now is not working. Living in fear is not working. Worried about whether or not somebody's going to pull you over and your life could end is not working. And 3 people rising above the consciousness of fear, that's fine. But give me public policy where you don't even have to work to rise above the consciousness of fear, because we have set the policy so that this is a non-entity. Because that space of, I'll get my consciousness right, I don't know. For me, that's not enough anymore. I will get my consciousness right and make it better for everybody else. And so you would keep going through the text in the same way, removing the words, keeping the definitions, removing the words, keeping the definitions. And so what is going to emerge is a perspective, right? Because the purpose of metaphysical Bible study is to reveal some mental process that we can employ in our lives and get results. And to do that, we see each element in the story, people, places, and things, as facets of our mind, not as separate things, but as facets of a single organism. And so it helps now to draw out the interaction, which I did that, so that you can see the movement of everything. And so a few of the observations that I got from sketching out the movement of each element is, one, that faith and love have a discipline of going into the consciousness of wholeness. If the lame consciousness is laid at the gate daily, then it's not the first time that faith and love encounter this consciousness. But faith and love, having received inspiration from I Am, are now in a position to do something about the lame consciousness. The lame consciousness continually seeks help, sitting outside the consciousness of wholeness. The redeemed consciousness of lameness, holding on to faith. This is what he does in the 9th and 10th verse. Holding on to faith and love tells me that I must not let go of faith and love. Together they facilitate my healing. If I take my faith and love into a daily communion with the one power, I will be able to heal the lame places in my life. Otherwise, they lay at the gate begging for support. Without that daily communion, I can only give them money, but I cannot heal them. So I can give them enough to do something for the day, but not something where they can do something for a lifetime. My responsibility in life is to heal all the lame areas in consciousness. And I would say all the lame areas in our society as well, in our collective consciousness. And so I want to open the floor for the conversation, just what you guys got out of this, and what you would want to see or hear differently, because I'm going to, go to another passage next week, to another passage of scripture.
I just get something clear.
You're breaking up just a little bit.
Oh,
There you are. Hello?
oh, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, that's good. That's very good.
My headset was messed up. So do these three things have to happen at the same time? Faith, Peter and John have to work at a specific time for the healing to happen?
Well, what's happening is that faith and love are being built up. So let's talk about what being built up means. Because you can practice working with your faith, right? So faith looks beyond what is and sees what can become. And so you could take as an exercise on a daily basis different aspects of society or different aspects of your own life. I would suggest your own life, because that would be more powerful for you. But different aspects of your own life, and simply begin to see beyond what is. So everything that was ever created is the combinations of two things that or more things that already existed. The technology that allows Waze. Anybody use Waze? Anybody use Waze? I'm a Waze person. Or Google Maps.
Google Maps.
Right, okay.
I had no Google Maps.
Yeah.
Ways.
Thank you. Okay, all right, I got some Waze people in there. Right? The technology that allows Waze has existed for decades before somebody thought to use it the way that it's being used now. It's everything that exists is the combination of two or more things that already existed, and somebody saw it and put it together in a new way. So faith then is about seeing what can be. And so the way that you build up your faith is through continually stretching. And you could just do this as an exercise. It would be like lifting weights. And every day you get up and you pick 5 things that you're going to see differently and imagine differently. And it's that same exercise. And what will happen is that it will become an automatic process in the mind where you begin to look beyond appearances. Because what happens is that we look at something and we say, book, and we name it book, and then we never think of it as anything else. And it's essentially, we have lost the question on our hearts for what else this could be. But somebody once looked at book and said journal, and somebody else looked and said, you know what? this exists. What if we got books on this? You know, like there's nothing new under the sun. It's always a recombination of things. And then with love, love is the ability to see good in all things, no matter what, to call something good and to insist that it's good until that quality appears uppermost in the character of the thing. And so you can do that with anything in your life. And so every day you're lifting that love muscle by picking 5 new things that you're going to say, what is good about this? And you could do this as an exercise across your past, because we all have those things in our past that we rather would not think about. But if you sat and said, you know, what's good about this? And every day you picked one new thing and you wrote what was good about it, you would change yourself from the inside out. That's the first thing. You would literally change how you feel about yourself. And places where you carry shame or guilt or whatever would literally dissipate, because as you apply love to your past, it heals all of those areas. Does that help?
Mm-hmm. So would it be safe to say faith is a subset of love? I think it's kind of similar.
Faith, well, I mean, listen, it's all one, right? It's all a facet of the Christ. But faith in its function sees possibility, and love in its function calls things good. It insists that all is good. It's this idea of oneness. So it's the idea in the mind of God of oneness, of connection. But faith is what looks into the future and calls what does not exist right now as though it is, and through the power of that faith causes it to come into expression. But they're all a facet of each one is a facet of the Christ. If you think of like a jewel having different facets, a 12-sided jewel, faith is one side of the jewel, love is another side of the jewel. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Any other things? Thank you for that. That was a great question. Anybody else? I'm going to try to skip over and check on Facebook for a second. Anybody else? I don't want to miss anybody. I see Lotus Jones here. Aloe, I didn't get the rest of your questions, so I don't know what your other questions were. Anybody else before I move on?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Regarding taking the 5 things, the exercise, and applying love to things in your life, in your past, in your world. Mm-hmm. Can you give me like a solid example, just a hypothetical of how that would go forward? Because I'm right now, healing is what is being pulled into my individual consciousness in a big way. And so this has resonated with me more than just about anything else I've read or heard. Mm-hmm. So if you could give me a solid way forward with that, it would be amazing.
Sure, 100%. So my parents divorced when I was 13. And divorce at that time in the part of the country that I was in was, it was like nobody was doing that. So we were like one of the first families in the church, on the block, at my school, like everywhere. That was like divorce. So there was a lot of shame. And my dad ended up moving and living in New Jersey. And and then, you know, our relationship was kind of was strained. And so I didn't see him a whole lot. And especially when he moved out of the state, I didn't see him very much at all. And he and my mom had whatever they had going on as far as like not getting along and not you know, being cordial with one another. But whenever I would ask him for something, his response would be, get it out of the child support. And when I was in college, or no, shortly after college, and my brother had come to Philadelphia to stay with me for the summer, I don't know what happened, but basically I run out of money. And I called my dad, who lived in New Jersey. So Philly to Jersey, I mean, we were not even an hour apart, maybe 45 minutes tops. And I called my dad and I said, Dad, I said, I don't have any food. I explained to him what happened. I don't remember why I didn't call my mom, but maybe I'd already asked her for money, or I don't know. But I felt like maybe, you know, he's around the corner, I should ask him for help. And he told me no. And I wasn't calling saying, hey, give me money for clothes, or hey, give me money for this little frivolous thing. I'm saying, hey, Dad, I need money for food. And I remember just the hurt, the shock, the I can't believe this ish, you know, feeling that I had. And it was hurtful for a number of years. But, you know, as I moved through this teaching, and one of the things that we learn is the principle of forgiveness. And so I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to forgive him for this. But once I started to pour love on that experience, and I started to say that what if I treated this experience as if it were good, and as if it were a good thing that happened? What could I say that was good about it? And as I poured love on that past experience, one is that it began to take the sting out of it. And two is that I saw something that I never saw before, which is that there was this resilience that was being built in me at, I think I was 20 at the time, 20 years old, that I had no idea that it was being built in me in that way. Now, would I have chosen to learn resilience a different way? Yes, absolutely. But I can't go back and change what has happened. What I have the ability to do is to reframe it. And when I love what I've been through, the mistakes that I've made, the things that I feel like have been done to me, the stuff that I've been through, I begin to see the gifts that those storms brought. And it was only when I poured love on that I could begin to see that. And I had already worked through the forgiveness piece. I'd already let it go and forgiven him and freed him or whatever. But it was when I began to pour love on it that I could extract the good from it. And I could see the poise that it gave me, that I absolutely have, and that no one and no thing can take away. Mm-hmm. Constance says, and truly you can say it was all good. Wow. Yes, 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 yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will just add to that. I think when we do it, I mean, kind of thinking about some experiences similar in nature, but when you're able to pour love on it or think from that perspective, it's good. And so when we begin to shift that mind from the ego state or whoa, it's me, in that pity pot, we begin to move to that higher level of consciousness. So I think the love pouring is elevating us to a higher conscious, which allows for that healing. And we're increasing our vibration, allows for that healing to take place. And we know we replace that experience with the blessings of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that's what's left. And that becomes your driving point to begin
Mm-hmm.
to stay in relationship with that individual or thing or whatever. But it certainly makes that shift, and you enhance or increase your capacity
Mm-hmm.
which you operate from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have this comment. Someone said, I am trying to take faith and love to a higher level, faith in the heavenly realm, love for my mother, to be happy for her, because this Mother's Day, even though she was not with me, she was able to be with her mother in heaven this Mother's Day, celebrating her mother. Mm-hmm. I think that's powerful. That's very powerful. Love is so transformative. It will transform your job. It will transform your relationship. I told y'all this. My friend loved her man all the way up into the presidency of the Tyler Perry Studios, and that was it.
Are they still together? I mean, just a little bit.
They're there. He's not the Tyler Perry Studio. I wouldn't disclose that if he were still there, because then y'all be able to go look him up. But yeah.
Sure.
I'm telling you, this dude, I'm not saying he was shabby. He wasn't shabby, but you know, love will clean somebody up. Love will clean somebody up. And I watched that happen. I was like, what? I remember when she brought that man back to LA from Chicago. We were like, oh, okay. Love is a many splendored thing. It's a many splendid thing. And then faith, you know, we need faith right now. We need faith because I was on a call last night and someone said, you know, I hadn't even healed from Ahmaud Arbery, and then this happened. And but there cannot be a demand for justice believing that justice cannot be had. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you have to go into the whole thing knowing that it shall be so. And that's, you know, that it's, and I heard some people are also saying, you know, time is out for prayer. No, it's not. That was another reason why I was like, wait a minute. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, because the faith comes by hearing, right? Faith comes by hearing, which means I've got to hear something different, right? I need to, and so what I'm listening for, what I always believe is that there's an exact, for every problem, there's an exact solution, right? There's not a vague solution because the problem is specific, right? We got a specific problem, but there is a specific solution. But we need the spiritual consciousness to perceive that solution, right? We need the mindset to pick that up. So when we're going into prayer, it is to pray specifically for what it is that we desire. I specifically want justice. I specifically want those men arrested. I specifically want them tried and convicted. And I specifically want a change in how policing happens. And I can't go in with the mindset of, this thing ain't gonna never change. We've been doing this for so long. Perhaps this is the moment where faith and love is walking into the temple, looking at the lame man, and we're about to do something different. Perhaps this is that moment. I'm willing to reach for that, but I certainly cannot get to it believing that it cannot be.
And can I say, I actually was on LinkedIn, and somebody was just, he was just like, well, at least they got fired. And I said, in what universe is losing your livelihood the penance for taking a life? I was like, that's not enough. And I said, that's not a universe I want to live in. because what you're saying is at least they got fired. You're expecting that that's enough.
Yes, exactly. And so it takes faith to look even at a situation that seems extremely bad and to say, we can make it better. Because the consciousness has to be dissolved out.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if I were working with a cancer, if there were a cancer in the body, it would be the same thing. What do I need to do? I change the diet? Do I need to exercise? Like tell me what I need to do.
Right.
Because, and that would be my conversation in prayer. Because the assumption is that health is my birthright. Well, collective health is my birthright.
Right.
A world where my son is not afraid to walk outside the door, or I'm not afraid to let him walk outside the door, is my birthright, and I shall have it.
Now, I'm coming as a mom of a 26-year-old. So he's a grown man. Now, he went to college, came back from college, and he's here. And so I have two things going on, and I'm going to make this really brief. Outside of my generalized, I really, of course, try and release any, feeling of him not coming home, because I don't want to encourage that in my existence, in my consciousness. So now he is out and about in the pandemic. And so I am in the space of, your mama's over 50. You can't be in and out in a pandemic. And he's trying to hit back with the, Mom, you need to raise your energy. You can't live in fear. And fear is a low vibration. I can't hide out in the house for the next 2 years and X, Y, Z. And so we literally just had this conversation, because he's like, I'm going to the gym. I'm trying to get my mind together. I'm trying to get my life together, all of whatever. And so I'm not sure the perspective, if my perspective is one of fear, wisdom, caution, is, I'm not going to say is he right, but it's not impossible and plausible for a 26-year-old to be, I'm his mother, so I can't say he doesn't have any idea what he's talking about.
Right.
So I guess that's a question with regard to loving that and looking at that from a different prism.
Yes. So I had this not with you, but I had this conversation literally a couple of weeks ago with someone, because the different age, but still the same circumstance, right? Of you're making a choice that has ramifications beyond just what could happen to you. And so I think it is to resolve the question in your mind, and and when I say it's resolve the question of, these are the rules of this house for which I'm taking responsibility for. And if this is what you're choosing, this is not what I'm choosing to bring into my house.
Right. Which we did have that earlier conversation today, where I said you might have to decide where you're going to be, because you can't just be in and out and in and out.
Right.
And you can choose that you don't want to be in fear, and you can't live, he's like, this could be going on for 2 years. I'm not going to be sitting in the house for 2 years. I have to live my life. People my age are out, and I'm going to be out. I'm like, well, then you may be all the way out, my friend.
Right. Right. And so it's to let it, right, because what you don't want is the oh, well, you need to get out and that kind of conversation, right?
Right.
But it's
Exactly.
that these are the ground rules, because this is how I'm choosing to protect myself. Dr. Gina says the power of choice. Yes. And so it is, and then just praying about it, praying for clarity and asking for exactly what it is that you want.
Okay.
That it is, you know, your free will ends where his begins, and his ends where yours begins. And so if we reach a point where your free will is encroaching on mine, then really what we're reaching a point of is that it's time, like Lot and Abram, to separate.
Right. Right. And it's, you know, and he has a younger sister, so it's not just, you know, it's me and him, and that's one thing. But then, you know, you've got your younger sister, and you can't imperil her as well. Right. So, okay. All right. Thank you. I don't want to.
No. I'm glad you guys asked it. So thank you guys so much for tonight. Are there any other questions? And I miss Constance had a comment. She says, like you said, everything that exists is two or more things that already exist, and the solution is now. Yes. The solution is right now. We are the solution. I'm telling y'all, a new thought. We're going to have to get up off our affirmations. And yes, oh my, it's over there. I put it on my mantle. Constance sent me a beautiful birthday card. Yes, it was so gorgeous with rhinestones and all kind of stuff. Thank you. It was gorgeous. Yes. And thank you everyone. Like Dr. Brenda, thank you for your gift. That was awesome. Like, thank you. I am grateful. This was a good birthday. This was half a century, y'all. Half a flipping century. So next week we will be back. And I'll ask you guys, like I did last time, do you want to do health or do you want to go to prosperity? Health or prosperity? What do we need to work on? We are, until we are done with this, whatever this is, we're either toggling between health or prosperity because you become what you study. You become what you study. You become what you study. And so we are studying health or we are studying prosperity. So, okay.
Well, let's say prosperity.
You know, there's an airplane overhead.
Prosperity.
Prosperity. Okay. All right. Okay, great. We'll focus on next time. I see 2 votes for prosperity, 1 for health. All right.
2 for health.
2 for health. Okay, 3 for prosperity. All right, 3. I feel like the auction man going once, going twice. I got 4 for prosperity, 3 for healing, and for health.
Health.
Right. So we will definitely circle back. We're gonna toggle in between.
The prosperity bring on the health.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. Yes. So thank you guys so much. And what am I gonna do? Nothing. I'm gonna send you guys the email for next week.
Yeah.
I had to think about it. I want to encourage you. This weekend is actually my anniversary. My 3rd anniversary as senior minister for Understanding Principles. That's right, Dr. Gina. She says you can't be prosperous without health. That's it. Yes, we need both. It's both and. But I'm just, again, all I'm doing, what happens when you study something is that you're building a foundation. So there's a firming up of the consciousness every time we go through these stories and we pick them apart, is that it seeds the consciousness. It just seeds the consciousness so that as stuff comes up in the world, it's like we are immunized against it. So, all right. I love and appreciate you guys. And I thank God for you. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
care. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank